Welcome everybody, good morning. And my name is Josiah. I've probably spoke with most of you before. If not, I'm the owner and training director of Newman Canine, and I'm going to walk you guys through the go home instructions for today. First half of today, we're going to go through the instructions in a seminar style format, and I'm going to give you guys the rundown on what to expect when you see your dog, the commands that they've learned while they've been here, proper reinforcement, things like that. And then the second half of the day is the part that most of you have probably been waiting for, and that's going to be when you get to see your dog. And when you get to reunite with your dog, we're going to go through some hands-on exercises to help bring you up to speed on the things that we're going to discuss this morning. First things first, when you arrived today, hopefully you received a folder that's going to have the go-home instructions as well as a tote bag that's going to have the items that you have opted in for. Also, there's a statistic sheet, and those numbers on the statistic sheet are unique or particular to your dog. The statistic sheet's going to cover everything from how much your dog weighs, when the flea and tick preventatives or heartworm preventatives are going to be due. One of the numbers that I want you to reference on that statistic sheet is going to be about a third of the way down or halfway down on the right-hand side. It's going to reference what your dog's normal correction level is. Okay, and that's because when we get to the equipment part of instruction today, I'm going to have you set your electronic collar to whatever that number is. So please reference it, remember it. And again, those numbers are particular or unique to your dog. And we're also going to talk about what unlimited versus limited water are when we get to the equipment part of instruction today. So as we're going through the go home instructions, a couple of things. We're going to cover the written instructions, and while we're going through the written instructions, if you have questions, please write them down. Rather than intermittently starting and stopping the presentation, we'd rather cover all of the questions in one shot. And sometimes you might find that the information we cover might answer some of those questions. But in either case, I'm more than happy to answer any questions you guys have when we get to the Q&A part of the presentation. We will be going through equipment today, talking about the leash, the collar, how to operate it, everything in between. And then after lunch, this is when the meet and greet's going to take place. That's when the dogs are going to come into the room, and we're going to go through some hands-on exercises where you will be seeing your dog and going through those commands. The nature hike will be modified. It's going to be a little bit shorter or smaller than it normally is just because of the weather, snow, ice, things like that. But there will be an outdoor portion for the people that would like to partake in that too. So we're going to jump right in and get started. And if there's any hecklers in the back, I'm ready for you. Okay. So first things first, on the top of your mind or coming into today, a lot of people think about what's going to happen when they reunite with their dog. Is their dog going to remember who they are? Are they going to be excited? And over the years doing this with approximately 1,700 dogs graduating from this course, I can tell you time and time again, over and over again, the dogs remember their owners. But part of that comes the dogs remembering certain mannerisms that they used to be able to partake in. Okay, so for example, if your dog previously was excited to see you and would greet you by jumping on you, your dog might see you today and go, hey, you're that person. This is kind of how we shake hands. I jump on you and you pet me, right? And part of the reason why we go through these instructions with you before the dogs come into the room is so that your first impression of seeing and meeting your dog, but also the types of behaviors and mannerisms that you're going to reinforce coincide with good behavior, like keeping all paws on the floor. And dogs really do understand environmental variables. So here in boot camp, we work hard to create as many different situations and learning opportunities for your dog, but going home, your dog is going to go, hey, this is that kitchen. There's the trash can over there that used to have food in it. This is the yard that I used to dig a hole in and bury something, right? So we're going to talk about not only how to use the commands, but also how to address those types of behaviors at home. Dogs, just like humans, will continue to learn throughout their entire lifetime. Okay, so at some point in time, your dog may learn something that you may not want them to have learned. And so from today moving forward, it's not that the training ends, but your reinforcement of good behaviors and what they've learned are going to help keep your dog on that straight, narrow path. While the dogs have been here, whether it's a 4-week, 8-week, or 12-week course, every interaction that we have with them, we are also reinforcing things. And what that does is that develops rapport. Okay, so when your dog sees you today, you're also going to have to establish rapport with them. That means rewarding them for making the right decisions and attaching negative consequences for making the wrong decisions. But aside from all the serious talk with training, the biggest benefit that I've received from having well-trained dogs are safety and freedom. My dogs get to go more places and do more things than untrained dogs because A, I know I can take them places, have them off leash safely. Secondly, it's a lot funner and more enjoyable to take them places and have them be well behaved. You guys are here picking up a group of trained dogs today. And so from here moving forward, as long as you're reinforcing that training, you're going to have those same types of benefits. This is a training picture that we've probably seen before, right? So we take out a bag of treats, our dog is all of a sudden interested in us, and we start practicing just some different things, and the dogs are responding. And then at some point in time, the treats are gone, and then the dog disengages and is no longer interested, okay? When you arrive today, if you look through your tote bag, one of the things you're going to notice is there are no bags of treats there, okay? And we're not going to be passing out bags of treats at lunch either. When we're working with the dogs today, we're going to be giving commands, and we're going to be following through with them, and the rewards are going to come from petting and praise. So one thing that I want the group to understand is that dogs think very differently from humans in many different ways, and they learn differently than we do too. So we as humans apply logic to everything, okay? We think about what's for dinner tonight. We think about where we're going to take vacation later this year. We might even say, hey, 5-10 years from now when it's time to retire, this is where I'd like to live or be. Dogs don't have these types of thought processes. They're very much in the present, thinking about the here and now. And it's part of what makes them so enjoyable to be around, okay? So as we're talking about how they're responding to environmental distractions, environmental variables, and also how we motivate them, it becomes very easy and a dynamic for you guys to follow that's not so complex because humans are a lot more complicated. And when we talk about the learning process, I could show a commercial up here to you of somebody not wearing their seatbelt and getting into a car accident and dying, right? Which would be very sad, but it may impact you to go, I'm going to wear my seatbelt when I leave here today. If we were to play the same type of video of a dog running out in the road and getting hit by a car that was chasing a squirrel, your dog would not watch the commercial and learn from that, okay? Because dogs learn from interacting with things. When we talk about dog intelligence, it's broken up into 3 categories. The first being instinctive. What is in the dog's DNA? What are they hard-coded to do? Whether it's a herding dog, a retrieving dog, those things are going to play a role in how that dog learns. Then you have adaptive learning. This is dogs figuring out things. Dogs that have really high adaptive learning processes can sometimes drive their owners crazy. When someone says, my dog knows how to open up a doorway, or you go to the store and you buy a trash can that says it's impossible for a dog to get into it, and your dog that first day you take it home figures out how to get in that trash can. Those are dogs that have high adaptive learning processes. And then you have trained behaviors, how dogs are going to pick up learning processes such as sit, down, stay, heel, come. Service dogs that can learn how to open up doorways, retrieve medical bags, things like that for their owners. And we're going to be focusing a lot on those trained behaviors today because that's why your dogs came here to learn a variety of things. And then when we talk about canine ethology, their motivators are very exclusive to survival. So we can use these things to help motivate them through the learning processes. We will use things like food at certain times as a reward, and we can continue to throughout their lifetime. We don't usually use things like water. Trying to work with a water bucket and reward a dog doesn't always work out so good. Safety is one that we use though. Okay, dogs like to be with their family, with their people, or with their person. Okay, and that's something we can use whether it's a heel command, a recall command, staying close to the person. And then we don't ever use things like reproduction as a reward for the dog. This is not that type of presentation. So, you guys awake out there? Come on. And throughout a dog's lifetime, the mental capacity of a dog is the equivalent to a 2 to 3-year-old child. Okay? Dogs are never going to wake up one day and start speaking our language and talking to us. Even though sometimes we wish they would, or at other times we're thankful that they can't. In either case, the mental capacity is going to be the same even in an adult dog. One of the questions we get often is, how do I handle places like the dog park? Okay, if my dog goes to doggy daycare, how's he or she going to get along with the other dogs? How do they handle the training, things like that? And what I like to remind people is that dogs are pack animals. Okay, sounds obvious, but here's the thing. You are your dog's pack. Okay, and if your dog was in the wild, going through the woods, hunting for food with its pack of dogs, it's not going to come across another dog or a couple of dogs, stop what they're doing, play for a little while, and then go, all right, see you later, time to go hunting again. If anything, they would come across another animal and probably kill it to eat. Okay, so when you look at the last 15 to 20 years of modern society, dog parks are a construct that are new. Okay, same thing with doggy daycares. And these types of environments are creating a lot of problems for dogs because dogs go there and all of a sudden they're presented with a whole group of dogs that they've never met before. So if another dog comes up to them and let's say you're standing there, here's your dog, and this dog comes walking up to you, your dog goes, we're a pack. Should I become defensive? Should I become submissive? And then all of a sudden you start to see these exchanges happen and this becomes problematic. Okay, and again, it's because your dog is a pack animal and you are your dog's pack. The other thing that can happen, and I've seen this too, is owners that go out on a walk with their dog, oh, here comes, someone from the neighborhood, they've got a dog, okay, let's let them meet. So now these dogs are coming face to face, pulling on the leash to meet each other, and then all of a sudden World War III happens and a fight takes place. And then they call us and go, you know what, I think my dog needs training, this terrible thing happened today. Well, what happened? Well, we were out on a walk and all of a sudden my dog started to pull towards another dog and a fight took place. I'm going, well, that's not that uncommon because that is not a dog that your dog has met before, and that's also a dog that's not part of its pack. Okay, so for many different reasons, I do not recommend taking your dog to the dog park. For many different reasons, I do not recommend taking your dog to doggy daycare. And for many different reasons, I do not recommend letting dogs meet each other in public places. You are your dog's pack. And so if you subscribe to what it is that we're talking about right now, or these go-home instructions, what's going to happen is it's only going to strengthen the bond between you and your dog. Now you are your dog's exclusive source of attention, food, safety, security, things like that. Also, we don't let dogs establish rank amongst themselves, here in boot camp or at home. Okay, dogs look to humans for everything. We're not going to let them sort things out. We also manage the resources. If you've read the go-home instructions and the FAQs, you know there are no things laying on the floor like bones, toys, things for dogs to become protective over. Okay, we have a very specific system for managing those things. Dogs can also become very doggy. Okay, what I mean by that is let's say you have a totally forward social dog, loves every other creature that it comes across. Well, here's the thing. If you're out on a walk with your dog and up ahead comes a dog and you go, okay, let's let them meet. Well, the next time your dog sees a dog coming up ahead, he or she's going to get very excited about it, and all of a sudden it becomes very difficult for them to show impulse control and heel next to you. Whereas if you don't allow that, you say, okay, when we're out on a walk, you have to pay attention to me. The reward's going to come from the walk in itself, or when we get home, there's some petting and praise for you. Then that other dog becomes a non-event. Now all of a sudden your dog's walking there next to you, focusing on you while that dog passes. And you will hear comments from other owners go, wow, look at that well-trained dog, right? You must have trained him yourself, right? That would be where you could say Newman Canine, but if you don't, I understand, okay? And this is kind of the picture that can happen at the dog park. Dog shows up for the first time. Where am I? We're at the dog park. Sometimes we play fight. Sometimes we fight for real. How am I going to know? You're not going to. And then all of a sudden, the interactions begin. And if you ever really want to see somebody's blood start to boil, start to critique them on their dog's behavior, okay? Their dog comes up and starts to hump your dog, and you go, hey, no, don't let your dog do that. Here, don't touch my dog. And all of a sudden, we've got a big problem, right? So these are places that I don't frequent. I get the phone call, and I get to hear the stories from people that go, my dog went to the dog park. He or she's been there for however long of a period of time playing with dogs, and all of a sudden, someday, somebody shows up with a new dog that they just went and rescued, and they don't know if that dog has dog aggression. It comes in, and all of a sudden their dog has a very negative experience. So we're going to talk about operant conditioning, okay? And this helps strengthen and reinforce behaviors. We use this during the training process, and you guys at home use it all the time and might not even know it, okay? But the first of the 4 quadrants of operant conditioning that most people have heard of before is positive reinforcement. Okay? Positive reinforcement means I'm adding something to the equation that's going to make the behavior likely to reoccur. So if I said to Teddy, sit, and he sits, if I take out a cookie and give him one, that strengthens the behavior. Next time I say sit, it's likely to reoccur because it's been positively reinforced. Okay? The next quadrant is positive punishment. Again, I'm adding something to the equation. Although we say it's positive, it's not something that the dog wants. It's positive because I'm adding it to the equation. If I said to Teddy, sit, and he doesn't sit, I'm going to add a negative consequence, and he sits. Next time I say sit, the behavior is likely to reoccur. Okay? Then you have negative reinforcement. Okay? And this was a popular training technique for quite some time, right? So if I say sit to Teddy, and he doesn't sit, I simply am going to apply pressure. And I'm continuing to apply pressure until he goes into the sit position. When he does, I remove the pressure. Okay? Negative reinforcement also occurs in a natural environment. Dog is out in the woods, finds a cool, shady place to lay down. The sun's moving. All of a sudden, the dog is in the sunlight, starts to feel hot, moves out of the sunlight. Okay? Negative reinforcement. Same thing. You get in your car, start it up, begin to drive, forget to put on your seatbelt. The dash starts beeping at you. Click, you put on your seatbelt and the beeping goes away. Okay, those are some examples of negative reinforcement. And then you've got negative punishment. Okay, negative punishment can get me into some sticky conversations with trainers because when a trainer says to me, I use positive reinforcement only, I'll ask them, go ahead and explain to me your training process. They say, well, Josiah, I only reward the behaviors that I like. Okay, and I'll ask them, I'll say, well, what happens if you give your dog a command and your dog does not respond? Do you still give them the cookie? They say, well, no, absolutely not. I'm going to withhold it until the dog follows the command. Well, taking something away from the dog that the dog wants is negative punishment. Okay, so that trainer is actually using 2 quadrants and doesn't even really know it. But if you look at the work done by B.F. Skinner in the 60s and 70s, what you're going to find is that the 2 most effective quadrants to use long-term, whether it's strengthening behaviors or maintaining them, are going to be positive reinforcement and positive punishment. Regardless of which quadrant it is, bless you, if we use one quadrant only, there's going to be a diminishing return to it. If I use positive reinforcement only, which I'd love to, if we could, but if I use that positive reinforcement only, there's a diminishing return. There's going to come a point in time where whatever kind of food or treat I have to offer my dog, they might not want it. They go, I'm full now. I've had plenty of treats. My belly's full. Now it's time to run after that squirrel. Okay, and I don't care how many different treats you have, there's a point in time when you have a competing motivator where the dog goes, nope, not interested in that, it's time to go. Okay, and that's why there has to be a balance between the 2. So markers are something that we've created for your dogs here in training, and it helps us communicate when they respond the right way or when they respond the wrong way to a command. And then we also use markers to communicate good from bad in terms of their behavior. And we, in our own world, understand markers. So if I were to ask the group a question, like a trivia question, and someone responded, and all of a sudden you heard ding, you would associate the bell dinging with the correct answer, right? And if somebody answered and all of a sudden you heard you go, okay, that was probably the wrong answer, right? So these are markers that we understand. Now the marker is not the reward. If it was ding, here's $5,000, right? That $5,000 makes you go, okay, I would like to get the right answer again, right? Or if it was now you owe $5,000. You go, oh, I don't want to make the wrong decision again, right? So it's what happens after the marker that creates value in it. And we've created markers for the dogs during boot camp. So the positive marker for your dog is the word free. So when we give a command and they respond to it, free is the ding, you just got it right. And if we said sit and the dog doesn't respond, no is the that's the incorrect response. Now, what builds value in these markers? Remember the $5,000 that you received or you owed? That's what created the value in our system. Well, for the dogs, it's what comes afterward that creates value in these markers. Okay, so when we say free and in a peppy, excited tone of voice, that's the ding, and then it's the petting and praise, going for a walk, whatever it is that we have access to at that point in time that creates value in it. Okay, when we say no, it's going to be followed with the positive punishment. That's the consequence, negative consequence. If we say free and we don't reward them, it becomes a meaningless word. Okay, if you heard ding and there was no reward for you, it's not that big of a deal anymore, right? Same thing with no. So keep in mind, guys, a marker is not a command, nor is the marker in itself the reward or the negative consequence. It's just simply communicating right from wrong. The nominal fallacy is the error in thinking that if you've named something, that you've explained it. And I've seen this with owners who have puppies, and I'll see them using commands that the puppy's never heard before. And in our human mind, we're going, they'll figure it out. They're going to someday they're all of a sudden going to start doing this thing, right? And they're rattling off commands. Or even in handler training, I've seen it where owners who are used to using commands in their past life or with other dogs that they've owned now use it with their new dog, and their dog has absolutely no idea what they're talking about. So as we're going through the go home instructions today, please keep in mind we're going to stick to the commands that the dogs have learned. We're not going to be following the nominal fallacy or creating new words hoping that they just figure it out. So free shaping. Free shaping is a very powerful learning tool. Okay, so free shaping is what gets a dog to offer behaviors that we want them to be offering. And the example here that I'm going to talk about is eye contact. So the very first day that the dogs get here at camp, we begin working on them giving us eye contact, and we like to use free shaping so that they offer it. And if you go back and look at the pictures that the team have been sending you, you'll notice the dog's making an awful lot of eye contact, right? So here's what happens. Day one of camp, one by one, the dogs are coming out to go through some fun exercises, one of those being some physical conditioning or some agility. But in order to get there, we have to go through a doorway. And this is a door that has no windows on it. It's just a white plain door. So we come walking up to the door, and we stand there and we wait quietly. This is the free shaping. We're waiting and waiting and waiting until all of a sudden the dog offers the behavior. And it could be by pure accident. But the dog is sitting there looking at a closed door, nothing to see. And after a few minutes of staring at the door, the dog gets bored and looks up at us. And the moment they look up at us, we say, free, which is the positive marker. Ding, you just got it right. We go through the doorway and we do something fun. Okay, that's the check, right? Well, after the first week of doing this, we come walking up to that doorway, and the dog is just staring at us, right? Now, in the dog's mind, the dog is going, I've got this guy trained. I look at him, he says this really funny word or makes this really funny sound, and then we go and do something fun. So the benefit to this is it gets the dog offering the behavior. Now, what does eye contact get us? Undivided attention. So then now when we get into the training process and we're giving a command, the dog is going to hear the command and is that much more likely to respond to it. So we're going to go through some free shaping today too with the dogs, and we're going to have you guys begin free shaping. This is part of the rapport process. Your dog has not offered eye contact to you in the context of training yet, but today it will happen. You're going to reward your dog for making the eye contact, and it's going to continue where your dog is going to be offering eye contact moving forward. And it's totally fine if the dog thinks that it's training you, as long as we all win, okay? So when we're going to give a command to our dog, first things first, we want the eye contact. But the thing is the dog doesn't know that we're about to give a command. So when we start out, we're going to say their name, okay? We say the dog's name, we give them the command, and then we're going to release him by saying free. So free does two things. Number one, free is the ding, you just got it right. And free also says you're now free to get out of position. That's why we like to use that word, because in our mind we know free means you're now free to excuse yourself from following that command. And then comes the reward and the celebration. And today that's going to be primarily petting and praise. And I like to call it a celebration because guess what? If we're going to use petting and praise, we have to bring a little bit of enthusiasm. Okay? If I go, free! Okay, the dog is going to go, that guy's kind of weird and stiff, right? Or if I go, free, yeah, good boy, and I bring a little bit of energy to it, dogs really understand that. Dogs don't communicate. I could say something to offend you, or I could say something to make you feel really good, right? Go ahead and say any of these things to your dog, and it's not going to have any sort of impact on them. It's going to be your actions that they feed off of. I'm going to do an eye contact demonstration, but I'm going to need a volunteer. And I'd like it to be somebody who's going to handle their dog today and somebody who has not gone through today's handler training before. So go ahead and start out by telling everybody your first name.
Kathy.
Kathy, what is your dog's name?
Polly.
And what kind of dog is Polly?
Golden Retriever.
All right, good. So what we're going to do is a demonstration where we're going to pretend that I'm Polly. Okay? Now, you guys are going to be doing the same thing later today with your dog. The only difference is Kathy is going to have an advantage over you because she's going to be able to practice this demonstration with me. Okay, so I'm going to give you the remote. This is the remote to an electronic collar. Now, this is the correction button. It's the black one with the S on it, okay? Now, when you say Polly's name, one of two things can happen. Either Polly makes eye contact with you, which we hope that happens every time. And when we start out the demonstration, when you say her name and she gives you eye contact, you're going to say the positive marker.
Free.
Exactly. That's right. And you don't have to pet and praise me. We're just going to pretend that happens, okay? Kind of depends on the day. Some days I say yes, no, but today we'll just pretend. So then the other thing that can happen is when you say Polly, Polly does not look at you.
Yeah.
Now, if that happens, you're going to give the negative marker, which is what word?
No.
And when you say no, you would give the negative consequence, which is also positive punishment, by pressing the black S button.
Okay.
And then we start over again by saying the name. Eye contact either happens or doesn't happen, reward or negative consequence. Okay, so go ahead and say your dog's name.
Polly.
Polly looks.
Free.
That's right. And petting and praise. Good. Now, go ahead, say it again.
Polly.
Polly doesn't look.
No. Polly. No. Polly. Free.
Beautiful. Round of applause. You're not done yet. Don't go down. We're getting there. So here's the thing, guys. What we've done so far is simply we've worked on getting eye contact from Polly. Now, one of the things you have to understand about markers, they have to be clear and concise. Because if when you say Polly, let's say there's a little bit of a delay, but then all of a sudden Polly looks right when you say no, now Polly thinks you're going to give a negative correction for her making eye contact with you. Okay, so when you say your dog's name, you have to be paying attention to your dog, and your timing has to be spot on. The moment you get the eye contact, it's free. If you want to write down your question, I promise I'll cover them all when we get to the Q&A, okay? So we're going to do it again, but this time we're actually going to give a command because that's what we're working toward, right? So the command in this demonstration is going to be down.
Okay.
All right, so go ahead. Say your dog's name.
Polly. No. Polly. Free.
No, we're going to do down. So let's do it again. That's okay. And here's what you guys are going to be observing from the crowd. Kathy's timing is only going to increase, and she's going to start to figure out. It's kind of like that book, Choose Your Own Adventure, right? Depending on what happens, you get to pick. We go this way, we go that way, right? But this time, we're going to give what command?
I forgot. Down.
That's right. So let's do it again.
Polly. Down.
And then you're going to say stay. So then go ahead, say it a little louder.
Oh. Polly.
You already got
it. Where am I? Down?
We'll start again.
What are we doing?
So here's the thing, guys. When you give your dog a command, we want to make sure that your dog hears the command. Okay? And for the sake of helping prepare Kathy for handler training today, I want to make sure that everything is in order and that you guys see those things in order. And mistakes are going to happen. So you guys are watching going, I got this. I could be doing that totally better. Let me tell you, when your dog comes into the room and you're excited to see your dog and the trainer is talking, saying do this and do that, it's a little bit more challenging. Okay, and that's why we like to do this demonstration. So let's do it again. What's going to happen is you're going to say your dog's name, Polly, and when she makes eye contact, you're going to say down and then stay.
Okay.
And then I'm going to have you take a few steps over here, okay?
Okay.
So go ahead.
Polly. Down. Stay.
So you go ahead, take a few steps over here. That's good. Now, I'm Polly, I'm in a down stay. Now, if you read your go home instructions, there's a very important part of telling your dog stay, which means before you would release them, you always return to your dog. Okay? And the importance of that is whenever you leave your dog in a stay, we never want them on the edge of their seat thinking, now's my time to get out of position. They're always waiting for your return. And then the second part of that is when you come back, we're going to free, shape, free. That's the mantra that I want you to remember, free, shape, free. And free shaping means when you come back, you're going to wait quietly for eye contact. Now, when you guys handle today in this room, or when you go home today, you're going to have a whole new set of distractions. So when the dogs come in the room today, there's dogs in here that they've never met before. Separate play groups, different tracks of boot camp, things like that. And there's people in this room that have never been in this room prior to today with the dogs here. So what's going to happen is your dog's going to go, oh, look at that guy, look at that lady, look at that guy. They're looking all over, and there's all this distraction. You're going, come on, dog, look at me here. I'm standing right here, look at me, right? And that's part of the rapport building process. You wait quietly until you get the eye contact. And when you get the eye contact, immediately say what word? Free. That's right. So you come out back to where you were. So you're returning to your dog that was in a stay position. And you are standing there quietly waiting. And you want to be paying attention to your dog, because the moment you get the eye contact, it's your role and responsibility to mark that in a positive way. All right?
Free.
Beautiful. Round of applause. Kathy, hold on. A little bit of positive reinforcement for you. There you go. We'll get you the right size later on. That's the positive reinforcement. All right. Thank you very much for helping out. So your dogs have been trained to perform the command the first time that the command is given. Something that Kathy did really well with was she didn't say, Polly, 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 over and over again. You said Polly one time, and then it was no correction. So good job, and that's exactly how we want to be handling. Because if you say the command over and over and over again, if it's Polly, 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 or down, 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 and then there's a consequence, the dog's always going to wait for however many times you typically say something before you give the correction. Don't forget to release your dog. So if you did say down, stay, and you walked away, and you got distracted, and you leave the room and forget that you gave that command, and then she gets up, guess what? Moving forward, when you give that same command, your dog is going to get up whenever they think they should, rather than waiting for your cue. And then rewards and celebration come after the release word free. Okay? And today, when you give your dog a command and your dog immediately responds to it, you're going to want to start petting. It's human nature. You're like, oh, yeah, that's awesome. You have to wait, because that comes after the release word free. So when the dogs come into the room, we have 13 dogs going home today. Okay, so there's going to be 13 beds in here. Let's say you're the first dog in the room. Lucky you. You get to reunite with your dog, the first person, but your dog is going to have to lay on its place bed while the other 12 dogs come in and reunite and go to their place beds. So while your dog is laying on that place bed, there is no petting going on. The petting is going to be when you say the word free. Because if you give that paycheck before the work's complete, the dog's not going to finish the work. Okay? You start to pet, you're showing your dog you're now free to get off of your place bed. So we give the command. When we say free, that's when the petting and praise is going to take place. So for the commands, for the dogs that have been trained in English, if we want our dog to sit, we tell them sit. If we want them to down, we tell them down. For walking on leash, we tell them heel. Heeling is always on the left. Okay. For the recall or come when called, we say their name and immediately say come. So this is going to be a command where we're not waiting for eye contact. It's going to be Sophie, come, or Bella, come, or whatever your dog's name is, okay? We're not waiting for eye contact. And then if the dog is already in a sit or a down and we want them to stay, that's when we tell them stay, when they're in position. Just like I mentioned earlier, when we tell our dog stay, if we leave them, we always return to them to release them. And then waiting is a temporary version of stay. So we use waiting at doors as well as in the crate. And the reason we differentiate the two is because when we tell our dog wait, it means don't come through the doorway with me. Well, you might close the door and leave and go do something and not come back and release them. Anytime we say stay, we're always going to come back and release. And then for the dogs that have gone through an 8-week or a 12-week course, they have learned a drop it command. And drop it is used either A, if a dog picks up an item that they're not supposed to have in their mouth, or B, if the dog is, let's say, doing some interactive play and they have a bone or a tug toy or something in their mouth that they are allowed to have, but we want them to drop the item. And then for going into the kennel, we simply tell them kennel and we will point at it. And then for going to their bed to rest, this is where we say place and we will point at the bed. When we handle here today, when you tell your dog place, you need to point very close to the place bed. That's because there's going to be 13 place beds in this room, and your dog is not going to know which bed is theirs automatically. We're going to have to be very specific. You can literally even tap on the bed. Going home, if place is a new concept for your dog, which it probably is, be very specific and obvious about which bed you want them to go to. With time, if the bed's always in the same spot, yeah, you say place, they're going to know where they need to go and lay down, but that's going to come with time. One more note on place. Place means three things. go to your bed, lay down, and stay. So 1 word, 3 activities. Part of the reason why we make the graduation video for you guys is so that you can see without any doubt your dog has been trained the commands and knows the commands, okay, and is also responding to the commands for both male and female trainers. So when we're handling today, if you give your dog a command and he or she does not immediately respond, it's not because they don't know the command. It could be because A, there's a bunch of distractions in here that they're choosing to be distracted by, or B, they might be testing you. Okay? This is where the rapport building comes into play. But in either case, they know the commands, and it's going to be your role to follow through and reinforce them if they decide not to respond.